Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's session. Thank you very much for joining. Today, we are covering all things human and AI customer service with Zendesk AI. My name is George Cox, and I will be your host for today's session. There's going to be lots of things we're covering today, and I think this topic is rather hot at the moment for various different reasons, and we're going to dive into many different topics and areas throughout the session. But really what we're seeing is customers' expectations are rising, and therefore teams are handling more inquiries than ever. AI is no longer just about automation. It's about empowering agents, improving experiences, and therefore driving efficiency. And in today's session in particular, we'll be breaking down the real world impact of AI and essentially showing you where to start, how to start, and of course, leveraging Zendesk AI to deliver a better customer service outcome. So by way of introductions, what I'd like to do is run through ourselves. My name is George, and I'm the lead senior Zendesk consultant here at Redcape. I've been working with Zendesk and working with AI now for 6 to 7 years. It's ever evolving. It's a real interesting topic with our customers and particularly internally as well. However, in today's session, I think our guest is the brains behind our conversation, and that is Lucinda. Lucinda, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Perfect. Thanks, George. That's very generous of you. So my name is Lucinda. So I'm an AI specialist here at Zendesk. So I support our strategic accounts globally and helping them to really understand what their AI strategy should be, what the sort of the benefits, the risks, the pitfalls, what's coming next, etc. Because it's an ever-moving topic. So they really need that level of subject matter expertise. I've been working in the AI space now for about 7 years, which I think for AI sort of probably makes me a little bit of a dinosaur in this space, but it's finally cool. So I've sort of seen the full revolution of it. And for a long time, I've been an AI evangelist, and finally, people are on the train with me. So super excited.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, really insightful. And I'm sure there's lots of experiences that we can draw on as well. Before we dive into the session itself and obviously giving a bit of an agenda, I just wanted to quickly highlight Redcape and who we are, and particularly while we're having this session. We are a Zendesk Premier Partner, and we have been now for a number of years, as you can see. We have also been previously awarded the Best Implementation Partner of the Year, which in fact included AI and some rather complex use cases. And we've also delivered over 400 Zendesk implementations throughout the years as well. This is a picture of not our entire team. We are based across the globe within Europe and the UK and I just wanted to highlight this because I think it's a nice summary and a nice happy picture of some of the team being together. So what are we going to cover today and what's really important? I think we want to break down the session in a couple of key areas. I think what we want to start with is having a bit of a Q&A session, of course, with yourself, Lucinda, about the future of customer service. What does that look like? How is that shaping? What are we seeing at the moment? And particularly, of course, how AI is falling into that. Then handing over to yourself in terms of a deep dive. What is Zendesk AI? How can people use that? What is the technology? What's the trend that we're seeing as well? And particularly highlighting some of the key features and functionalities. Then we've got some use cases that we'd like to share with you. So covering in terms of some context and solutions and the impact that Zendesk AI is having for our customers. And then lastly, we'll wrap up with a bit of a practical insight as to how to implement. If we have time, of course, we will cover some questions and answers. If you have anything, please feel free to include them in the chat. If we don't get around to covering them, then we will, of course, follow up with everybody with a bit of an understanding of what those questions were and hopefully some insightful answers. Excellent. So obviously, I think it's fair to say that everybody has a different definition of what AI is. I think it's depending on where you've come from, maybe even depending on your experience, the role that you have within an organization. And we all have different interpretations, as we say. Some people think automation, some people think deflection, solution, resolution, the list goes on. But Lucinda, what I'd be maybe quite interested to hear is maybe how you would define AI in customer experience and customer service right now.
Yeah. Right now is really crucial there because I think what the term AI means has changed so much across the last few years. So I think for a long time before AI became so prevalent, we sort of understood AI as almost, being able to sort of match human consciousness. I think we now acknowledge that the AI we talk about today isn't this sort of all-encompassing sort of human consciousness, but really it's the ability of, sort of computer programs to actually replicate human intelligence whenever it comes to sort of managing and resolving tasks. Now, for a long time within customer support, The AI that we were using, and we were probably quite early adopters of AI, but it was probably much more along the lines of like natural language processing. It was probably the first sort of iteration of AI within sort of customer support. One of the most challenging things that we found at the time were that there were some businesses, like ourselves, who actually did have natural language processing and were really quite advanced within the market. But everybody was still using this term AI everywhere, okay? Because, you couldn't really see behind the curtain. Sometimes it was very difficult. So you just say you have AI and people assume that that you can do something wonderful and magical. I think OpenAI came along and they sort of shifted things quite considerably, and we started to move into the generative AI era. Okay, so I think in terms of what AI actually means, then people started to really understand that it wasn't just this AI fatigue that they were hearing. AI actually is something that is, sort of very tangible. They trust in it, they believe in it, they're impressed by it. Okay. Now, the generative AI era was definitely much more along the lines of essentially being able to generate content. Okay, so vast search capability, hyper conversational ability. That's what you had with generative AI. We were still battling a little bit. I think over the last 2 years, there's been this gold rush towards AI. So it's very much, my boss told me to get AI. I don't know what I'm getting. Tell me what it is. And this sort of, AI will fix everything. Okay, AI is here. It's our savior. But even still, people didn't really actually understand what it is, and we had to almost like measure people's expectations in terms of, yes, we can use AI within your customer support strategy. It doesn't mean it's a magic wand that's going to fix all the problems that you have within the next 6 months. Now we are actually moving into the agentic AI era. Okay, so and this I would say is really, really quite recent. So now I think the way in which I would have normally measured people's expectations downwards a little bit, we're now in a really exciting time where actually AI is capable of adaptive reasoning, making decisions on its own, and the level of impact that it can have within a business is incredibly significant. So previously, I think we talked about AI within the customer support area as deflecting conversations. I always tried to say, we automate or we deflect conversations and we use AI as part of that. We are now moving into a new sort of definition of that and being able to use AI and automation in sort of, the end-to-end journey of customer support. So even right the way from that sort of first outreach from your customer, the whole way through to the admin experience of looking back on what a business insight would be, AI has the potential to improve and enhance all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I think you've covered lots of different really interesting points there. And one of the ones I always like to highlight is that we've moved from an era of deflection and we're now looking at solutions. Whereas before it might be having a conversation, if a customer is looking for a question and we give them an answer, we take them to maybe somewhere else to find an answer. Now it's about giving them the answer they need on their fingertips in the device that they're using and giving them a solution to that question or to that particular problem. And that's a real shift in mindset, not just for the consumer, but also for organizations that are adopting such tools. You've covered some of those points already, but I think it'd be quite nice to hear your side of things as to why AI and customer service is such a hot topic right now. We appreciate customer expectations, operational pressure, AI advancements, but maybe digging into the detail as to why that is, do you think?
Yeah, so I think there's probably a bit of a pincer movement now, right? In that for a long time, the businesses who were adopting AI and maybe more sort of in the NLP era, this was something that, yes, they were trying to see if they could elevate customer service, but they were also sort of maybe focusing on the sort of cost down deflection. So cold, hard KPIs, is this going to save me any money? Yes, it had some benefits on customer experience, but the technology at the time was a little bit limited, okay? And it was kind of something that businesses were, I don't want to say forcing on people, but sometimes that's how customers felt. Now, this is what customers want. Okay, so like I said at the start, AI and chatbots and every kind of bot is finally cool. People are interested, people want to interact with them. And we're coming to a point where there is that level of expectation. Okay, so people, people interact with OpenAI or generative AI on a daily basis. So people are really starting to lean in and adopt this technology and really start to ask questions about why your business isn't. Okay, so if they're interacting with you, it's very likely they may have had an interaction with a competitor. Were they much more sort of advanced, mature, sophisticated, and were leaning into that AI strategy versus yourself, where maybe they had to wait 2 or 3 days to actually get a response to an email? Then they maybe start to question the business as a whole. So I think we've got the customer side of things. But I think, really a lot of that is driven by the fact that the technology has significantly improved. And we're not just saying that we've had this one moment, like this iPhone moment that has changed the world. The rate and pace of change is also not something that we fully really expected. So every 3 to 6 months, 2 years ago when generative AI first came around, we struggled to see how much further it could possibly go. Now in the agentic era, we're starting to understand that actually the scope is huge and we're really only scratching the surface of what we can do. So the technology enhancements has definitely led into the customer interest, and businesses are now finally paying attention and investing.
Excellent, thank you. And then there's loads of different rabbit holes that I'd love to go down into, and I think unfortunately we've only got a set period of time. But I think, as you already highlighted as well, there's definitely this preconception of what AI is. Even if we're changing that landscape, it's a slightly different conversations are happening. Companies are at different stages, but there's definitely still an understanding that AI is just automation. So maybe from your experience, and particularly even more so recently, how do you think companies should be thinking about AI, but beyond just that automation, which we might typically associate it with?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. And the people who will win in this CX battle are the people, I think, who are actually zooming out. Okay, so really you need to be thinking about, analyzing your entire customer experience journey and starting to identify where the bottlenecks are, and where the points of friction are. And then ask yourself, can AI help me here? Okay, so not what can AI do, because that's a huge topic. We've seen sort of chatbots in, many years ago, before AI was as prevalent or as advanced as it is now, and people just shoved everything into them just because they could. We saw travel chatbots that because they could connect to a weather app, then they were like, would you like to know the weather? Nobody who's calling an airline wants to know what the weather is, so it's like, what are your business problems? And then how can AI solve an impact for that?
Fantastic. Yeah, completely agree. And I think it's about being a bit proactive in our engagement, not just as agents reaching out to customers. It's about, as an organization, how can we find the bottlenecks, as you say? How can we find the challenges, and how can we address that before it becomes a bigger problem? Or are we doing our root cause analysis? And AI can also support that, as you quite rightly say. It's a very difficult question to ask, but I think it's one that lots of us would like to hear your thoughts on. We know that AI has changed so much in just the 6 to 7 years that you've worked with it. Even how I've been engaging with Zendesk and customers, it's changed hourly, if not minute by minute sometimes. But where do you think, or how do you think it will evolve over the next 2 to 3 years? And as I said, it's a very difficult question. But if you had to break it down into almost a short, mid, and long term, what do you think that might look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. Oh, and I like the short, medium, long term. So I think in terms of the short term, I think the agentic AI approach is everyone's going to absolutely be scrabbling towards that. So I think we've come a long way from the sort of more point-to-point, more basic sort of chatbot structure. Okay, we still recommend this structure quite a lot for customer support, because people do need control, and sometimes if a customer asks a question, there is a very specific response that needs to be given, whether it's to do with your own internal business policies or actually regulations, etc. So there's a more structured approach. Then we started to, and it's something that Zendesk have done really well versus the competition, is actually how can we take that control and structure and infuse and improve it with generative AI, rather than a complete switch. Okay, so it's a complete sort of trust and a leap into going 100% AI based. So we had quite a measured approach into being able to blend both of them together. We're now bringing in our agentic AI, so essentially adaptive reasoning bots. Okay, so this now means that we've developed a number of, so you don't just have an AI agent who works for you as in one bot, you have a team, and each of those agents has a different specialism. Okay, so it means we can put a lot more maturity and sophistication into the bot, and it means that there's a number of sort of key impacts. So the bot is capable of much more mature use cases, much more, it's better at being conversational, it's better at checking your knowledge bases, it's better at managing all of your business rules. So it's elevated, and it is actually just better. But a big part of this also is how we're able to actually build these bots. Okay, so how are we able to sort of like speak to them in very natural language, and actually by just explaining to the bot what we want to do, it will build that sort of controlled structure flow for you. Okay, so in the short term, I think we'll see a huge amount of adoption of this type of technology. You know, a year ago, it may have taken 3 months as an implementation to get a bot strategy off the ground. Now we're looking at days. You know, even if that, hours, depending on how complex your environment is. So I think the agentic AI approach, and specifically within your contact center, is the immediate short-term win that I think a lot of businesses are leaning into right now and seeing the benefit, like I said, within weeks. In the medium term, I think we're seeing people start to build out beyond just that sort of contact center. Okay, and just that sort of agentic AI approach. We've been developing a lot of products within Zendesk. So our agent efficiency tool, Copilot, is becoming more and more robust. We are doing everything we can to ensure the typical bottlenecks of standing up an AI strategy is removed. I watched a demo the other day with a new product we have, which can actually build content for your knowledge base, for a knowledge base. It can build a knowledge base based on your historic tickets within 7 minutes. We watched it actually create this knowledge in front of us in 7 minutes. You know, so removing all these pieces of friction, we now offer the ability to actually build an app. Okay, so if you need to sort of connect various different systems, you can build an app with natural language within Zendesk. So all of these various different things mean that the traditional sort of points of friction of sort of going beyond just the contact center are now going to be removed. So I think we're going to start to see then that sort of end-to-end journey, not just be customer to agent, but then also sort of any side conversations into any other departments, being able to successfully communicate with your back-end systems, drive almost like campaign type interactions. Long-term, this is anyone's guess. Personally, my view and where I think AI agents are going to go is I think they're going to become super, super personalized. Okay, so I think, you know, we're going to be customer support specialists, and you know, at Zendesk, we're the largest customer support business in the world. So we're always going to have that very customer support expertise within our AI agents. But if we work with a business who's maybe a banking business and they have their own AI agent, which is an expert in their regulations or an expert in their back-end systems, do we need to build APIs to their backend systems, or actually can our AI agent speak to their AI agent?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they can have like a nice little AI agent conversation between each other, do all the reasoning that needs to happen. And really, you know, that's where we just need to create structures then, and then AI will autonomously look after itself. And I think we'll start to see a lot of, like, you know, personality into AI agents as well, that they're not just there to drive deflections, but, you know, drive experiences. Can they be proactive? Can they send a little message 3 days after they've sorted out your refund saying, by the way, are you happy with this? You know, can they get to know you? Can they sort of understand what your style is, and, you know, sort of, you know, what clothes you've been buying recently, and get in touch with product recommendations? I think we're really starting to see personalization at scale become really exciting within the AI world.
Fab. Well, I think I, for one, I wish I hope that I'm in your AI world in the long term, because that sounds certainly exciting. I think even just talking about the short and midterm, the nerd in me is very excited. I think I'd love to get my hands on even seeing that demo that you saw about creating the article. I think that's a big game changer, and maybe, like I said, I'm a bit sad, but that really fascinates me. But that's really brilliant. I think it leads on to one of my topics or questions here, is that sometimes when we're speaking to customers, there's still that elephant in the room, in that how will or could AI replace humans? And that's not what we're saying, really. But it is the underlying concern that a lot of business leaders and a lot of team leaders have, is because they're responsible for their team. Nobody wants to see AI taking jobs away, and I think that won't be happening. But again, I think some insight on what you believe a great AI and human balance might look like. Does that, in terms of they're not replacing, but they're giving them that, removing that friction, as you say. But yeah, a bit of insight on that would be also excellent.
Yeah. So I think It's not about replacing humans, and that's never been our goal. I will say that some areas of customer support, and a recent experience I had last week, just trying to get a returns label from a company, which actually took 2 weeks, 4 emails, and I still didn't have my returns label. There's some parts of customer support that's very, very ripe for some sort of overhaul, whether it's AI or something else. But I think that, there are some things that AI is probably not going to replace anytime soon. And that's things like, empathy. Okay. Like actually, if somebody's really, really frustrated, sometimes just feeling heard can be hugely important. But I think in terms of the people you have today, they're a wealth of knowledge and information, okay, on what drives your business, on who your customers are. Okay. So the people that we have who are building bots today and building out these structures, they're typically agents in your contact center. They're people who know your customers. So we work really closely with them to give them this new skill set. And whereas previously there was a little bit more skill required, now that so much of this is natural language, really it's like them explaining to a colleague how to navigate and manage these use cases. So it's about upskilling. That's a super, super important part of what we're doing today. And also I think it's about bringing your support org on that journey. Okay, so allaying any sort of fears or sort of worries that they have, and making sure that they are part of this, that they're supportive of it, that they're excited by it. As it is, our agent efficiency tools take away a huge amount of the manual work involved in responding to customers. Who wants to go back and check their grammar? Who wants to sort of check 3 different knowledge bases with 3 or 4 different tabs and see if it's this answer or this answer? What if all of that can be done for them, and actually they can just help people? So I think that none of this works without humans and without the support of humans.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think many of the customers, and some of which we'll touch on in the use case scenarios, are adopting this co-pilot, this supporting humans first to see the value first and foremost, but actually building a bit of trust, building a bit of rapport with the AI, if you like, which is quite an interesting topic in itself, and actually validating, can we believe what it's doing? Can we trust it? Before we then expand it and we create these more complex or more sophisticated, use cases, if you will. But I think it is about that. It's supporting people as much as it is, improving or automating if that's necessary. Maybe one final question before we dive into the Zendesk AI as a product and some features, which sort of leads on to that last point there, is about brand consistency and brand trust. And I think it's quite an interesting one for lots of our customers, because we have lots of customers that focus on different teams. They're responsible for different KPIs, metrics. But if we're going to be adopting AI across the business, we need to have some confidence that there's going to be some brand consistency and trust. And so, again, we're interested to hear how you think AI would support such thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is where, when people talk about sort of building versus buying, I think that this is where sort of Zendesk in particular play really well, okay? In that you're not purchasing an LLM, or you're not purchasing something that you need to go and develop yourself. All of these sort of controls, so things like brand guidelines, how the brand, or how the AI agent should speak on your behalf, how it should format your brand name, for example, what sort of tone it should use. All of that is actually configurable at an org level. Okay, you can split it off into various different brand levels as well, but these are exactly the sort of considerations that we've built out of the box, because we know what people want we know what our customers want from AI agents. We need to ensure that brand consistency is there. Arguably, once we have that set, are we more consistent than humans? Possibly, very possibly. I mean, there's probably a philosophical discussion to be had there. But, I think that it's a little bit more sort of controllable. It's also a little bit more trackable now. I think now that we've got things like QA for AI as well, all of these conversations being digitized, whereas 5 to 10 years ago, they would have been phone calls. It's much more easy to track the success of the controls we have in terms of the brand management space.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And to be honest, I wish we had more time on our hands because there's lots of different areas that I'd love to pick your brains on. But for anybody that does have follow-up questions or anything on the areas that we've touched on so far, then again, please use the Q&A, or we can obviously arrange a session afterwards. So now what we'd like to do, maybe move on to the next section, is focused on everything we've learned, everything we've discussed, and actually what that means in reality, particularly related to Zendesk product itself and Zendesk AI, of which there are many different SKUs, there are many different angles that customers could either adopt or historically using, or even into the future. So maybe a good place for us to begin is firstly introducing Zendesk AI, but also maybe Lucinda, maybe just breaking the mold, if you like, in just beginning to help us understand what does Zendesk AI offer in terms of a productized offering right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And that is something that has changed, I think, over the course of the last few months, quarters, years, and so it should have as things have developed. So where we stand today is we have two very simple products that are housed under the umbrella Zendesk AI. So we have our customer-facing product, which are AI agents, and then we have our agent-facing product, which is Copilot. Okay, so lots and lots of different features within there, and both of those are also very focused on the admin experience. But in simple terms, that is what Zendesk AI is today.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate that we have lots of customers asking about, we want this AI, and it's about, I suppose my role in particular is helping customers understand what is it they're trying to achieve, and then understanding what AI model is best suited to them, of course, as opposed to hoping we implement something and it's going to solve all of our problems and we can then just wash our hands and we move on to the next thing. But I think it's a nice place to start. So moving on then, in terms of how you would, I suppose, redefine potentially AI.
Yeah, exactly. So, a lot of the changes. So, I mean, we've been at the forefront of a lot of innovation in the customer support space for sort of upwards of 10 years now. And this is, what we're seeing is almost like the third sort of revolution within the customer support space. So there was the digital revolution, and now we're looking at the AI revolution. And it really, really is redefining those customer expectations. So at the start of my sort of career in AI, I was trying to convince people that they should have this, but it was very much a nice to have. Now it really is a must have, because what people are expecting is that instant response. And I think for, there's certainly been sometimes this bit of like a legacy shift or a legacy sort of mindset that, well, actually our customer service agents and our people, they are our brand. I'm not saying that they're not the brand, and I'm not saying that they're not important, but we need to take a step back and realize that people just want their problem solved. Okay, so they don't always want to have a little chat. They actually just want their problem solved, and we all want it now. Okay, nobody's waiting a couple of days for these sort of responses. So yes, they want it now, but they also want it to be accurate and personalized. And this is where bots, I think 3 years ago, were slightly less effective. They were great at some use cases, not great at others. They were missing a lot of that sort of connectivity and that conversational ability to really be personalized, and that always-on capability as well. All of these sort of flow really well into sort of being able to see huge spikes in contact that happen throughout the course of the year. So customer expectations are sort of really driving the adoption of this technology across businesses. So if we move on, again, it's not just that customers want it and we should give it to them, okay, that we feel that we should give it to them because we'll have happy customers. So, and it goes to your point earlier, George, which was sort of really bang on the money, that people are moving away from this idea of bots as deflection. Okay, what we're seeing here is that actually the businesses who are adopting AI and automation within the customer support center are seeing better business outcomes. They're not seeing less contact coming into that. Well, they are seeing less contact coming into the contact center. They're seeing people being able to work more efficiently. They're seeing higher customer acquisition. They're seeing higher cross-sell revenue, higher customer retention. These are huge, huge business impacts that go beyond the traditional contact center KPIs. So moving on again, yes, we all want to adopt AI. And like I said, last year, everyone was coming to us saying, my boss says we need AI, but what do we need to do? as I've mentioned, you need to align AI to your business outcomes. And now we're starting to see that AI has so many more applications. People can be really, really quite sort of granular about step by step, what is that customer experience? 6 months ago, nobody would have ever thought, can AI build a knowledge base? Now it can. Okay, so creativity at every step of the way. What is stopping you from hitting that 80-90% automation rate? So aligning AI to those business outcomes, and then evolving your workforce and your processes. Okay, sometimes people will come to us and they'll say, we really want to do this. We know we should do this. We know the competition is doing this, but we're not ready. You're never going to be ready. Okay, you're just never going to be ready. This is a process. You know, I have yet to meet a business who has been built from the ground up, whether it's in the support org or the general business, with AI and automation in mind. Okay, it's just not there. So you just have to take that plunge. You have to ensure, you know, start working in those processes as an iterative project, and the same whenever it comes to your workforce. Bring them along that journey. Ensure that not only are you upskilling them, but they understand that it's their journey as well, and that they're not just, I don't want to, you know, say the victims of it. Like, really, this is an opportunity for a lot of people to upskill into what is one of the most lucrative careers right now in AI.
And maybe if I could just add something here, Lucinda, what we're finding quite interesting is that even historically, before the AI, you know, revolution, if you like, or evolving within customer experience, customer service, there's no chief customer experience officer, like there might be a chief revenue officer or a chief technology officer. And likewise, there's no chief AI officer, right? In terms of there's no one singular person that's maybe responsible for this. It's a collaborative approach. It's involving processes, people, technology. You know, everybody can have a say and everyone can have an input into this. Sometimes it may need to be led by a particular individual, but that doesn't mean to say that the groups can be involved. And I think some people see that as a potential challenge, right? Who is going to be responsible for this? Where does it land? Is it within the data team? Is it in the technical team? Is it customer experience? And of course, it does lap over into all of those areas and much more. But it also gives an opportunity to be really collaborative in the company. How can we actually use AI to our advantage, but maybe even sometimes review even the processes that we have, the people that are involved in handling tickets or involved with customers? We actually have an opportunity to not start again, but have an opportunity to recognize what can be improved, what do we like, and then we can evolve from there. So I think that's certainly a big challenge we find, but an interesting sort of topic which feeds into what you're just mentioning there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess to answer all of these queries, we've now developed our, it's not that we're now launching Zendesk AI, maybe the rebrand of Zendesk AI, but we have been building AI products for a significant amount of time. I appreciate there's been some changes to the naming conventions, so apologies to everyone while it's maybe been a little bit confusing over the course of the last year or two. But we're very clear on where we are now. And essentially, it is this idea of being able to create products that support that sort of full end-to-end journey. So how can we help to automate those customer experiences? How can we help to assist agents, but optimize as well? So optimize, I look at that very much towards the sort of like the admin efficiency, the business efficiency, the amount of time it takes to stand up these sort of strategies, and taking away as much of that level of manual workload as well. So that's the overall. And this, I kind of wanted to include this. I'm not going to go through each and every one of these various different customer stories, but what I did want to talk about is what you're seeing with these different sort of customer stories or customer wins is a real diverse mix of products that they've used. So Siemens have actually used our email automation tool, and that's driven a huge amount of productivity for agents. That was their sort of key focus. When you look at Hello Sugar, they're actually looking very much at being able to double their business, and they've leaned in so much to what we do that they have achieved such high rates of automation that they can double their business without actually having to increase their headcount within the contact center. So again, sort of tracking back, this is almost like bookending the, start with your business problems, know what your goals are, because as much as building a bot across any channel might be relatively similar from a structural perspective, how it's impacting your business, what you want to track, where you want to start, all of those things. That's the sort of stuff that that Zendesk can help you on, but also RedK can help you on, and really sort of helping you to prioritize, where your quick wins are, what your goals are, how you take this to the boss at the end of the day and say, look, we did a great job.
Absolutely. And I think just to complement that, everything requires a return on investment to an extent. And I think these numbers speak for themselves, but I think we can also support in the evaluation and understanding what metrics are we trying to achieve. Again, doing that bit of root cause analysis, what are we trying to implement? Are we implementing something that's going to add real value? It's going to change things and impact either internal staff or customers. And how can we put that against a metric that we can quantify? And it's always nice to have a base level of where we're starting from. For example, Freedom, there you can see their CSAT had improved. And we know the base level, their CSAT was at an X percentage. And by implementing such products as Zendesk AI, we can really increase it. So it's always nice to see some numbers against some logos for sure.
Of course. So I then wanted to talk about maybe like deep diving a little bit, not too much. I could talk about sort of our two different products for a significant amount of time, and I'll spare you for today. So on our customer support side of things, as I mentioned, we're moving into the adaptive reasoning AI agent or agentic AI approach, which are lots and lots of buzzwords, which will all become much more normal and much more tangible very soon. So I blame the AI world for changing all the naming on this so much. But essentially, if we just go back to the previous slide, no, that's okay. So from a customer support perspective, we have AI agents which are able to support you today on all of your digital channels. Coming very, very soon is going to be voice. And this is where we're starting to see, now with the level of maturity that we have, now with how quick it is to build these, being able to build from a natural language perspective, how quick and easy it is to integrate to all of your various back office systems. We're now seeing people who are achieving that 80% deflection on their first implementation, which is crazy. We previously, for a very long time, we would have said that this was a journey. And for some businesses and some levels of complexity, it is. But for some businesses, they are coming straight out the gate at 80% deflection, which is super, super exciting. So we'll see our customer support tool continue to build out and grow. And now another focus, obviously, is on the agent support side of things. So again, that's sort of helping, how can we help humans become better with AI? There is a huge amount of manual work for agents today, which actually make their job probably a little bit less enjoyable, quite frankly. So we've got a number of different areas within our Copilot product. We have a number of various different language and rewriting tools, summarization tools, giving them the ability to very quickly understand what's happening with the ticket, right the way through to our auto assist tool, which also then helps to draft a response, following your business processes, ensuring that agents don't need to go and check what is the policy, what is step 1, 2, and 3 for this particular request, etc. Not only is auto assist going to be supporting them in real time in those tickets, but also checking the back end systems and also drafting a response for them. So really then we're sort of talking about moving the agent role into almost like a supervision role, and ensuring that these things are going out with a little bit more of like a human touch, and ensuring that their ability to manage customers and know their business is not being held back by these sort of manual tasks. So Copilot, some really, really exciting things happening there, and we're going to continue to build that out over the course of the coming quarters as well.
Thank you very much, Lucinda. I think just a point to highlight there, of course, is that these agents are equipped with the most up-to-date technology, whether it's Apple Macs for their work, for iPhones, Samsungs, watches, applications, you name it. And so therefore, when they're moving from their personal lives and using state-of-the-art technology and then coming to work, we need to empower them with the same sort of tools. We need to give them the same sort of resources that they're familiar with, because if they have them in their fingertips in their personal lives, why not transfer that across to their professional lives? And I think now that the products and the tools are available, we can certainly leverage that and utilize it as well. But Lucinda, thank you very much for the Zendesk product side of things. I'm just conscious of time as well, but what I wanted to try and do from a Redk perspective is maybe just bring this to life as to how we've actually helped some of our customers. I appreciate that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of articles, webinars, topics all about AI, and we've covered some really interesting topics. But how can we translate those things we've listened to today and actually what have we done for our current customers, and just give you a bit of a snippet or an insight as to what that looks like. So one particular example I'd like to highlight is working within the use case of the industry, I suppose, for hospitality. Working with Newcastle, we have implemented Zendesk across the board for many different teams, both external and internal use cases, looking to streamline their processes, coming from a bit more of a legacy, outdated solution, and then looking to provide integrations. And that was really the base of the foundation that we set up with those guys. With the evolution of the Zendesk products, as Lucinda has quite rightly mentioned, Copilot was a huge area that we could see. I mean, football clubs traditionally are many different businesses within an organization, and therefore we need to speak to different stakeholders, partners, supporters, and therefore we need to give the agents the ability to understand what people are talking about, how can we summarize conversations that are happening, can we suggest similar tickets, and can we give the power back to the admin to make those changes and give them that insight that otherwise previously they may not have had. As a result, what we're particularly seeing with AI Copilot or Zendesk Copilot for these guys is in particular faster resolution time, improved supporter experience, an increased operational efficiency. Most importantly, we've got data insights, but also the scalability that can help us in terms of route tickets and be more effective. And I think it's fair to say supporters of football clubs can be rather needy. And so therefore, we need to make sure that the support staff have everything they can equipped to be able to respond as quickly and effectively as possible. And Copilot's really making a difference. We're also even having conversations about how we can incorporate this to the external world. But I think this is a great example that we're building that rapport with this, and then we can move on to the next stage as and when it's necessary. So the next use case I'd like to talk about is Vivo Barefoot within the retail area. Essentially, we supported Vivo Barefoot, in evaluating their requirements from Copilot all the way through to advanced AI. We're understanding their current processes, their current ways of working, and going back to your point earlier, Lucinda, in terms of what their challenges were. I think it was they saw they needed to take this step, particularly in retail and the sheer volume they're receiving, but they didn't know where to start. How do we evaluate this? What are our real challenges? What are our real problems? And how do we show that we're going to be getting a return on investment? So what we're doing is very much a consultative approach in terms of understanding where they are today, going through this process, identifying key areas, that gap analysis, doing a bit of root cause analysis, and then developing the product and the features to really show that we can address some of these problems, implementing enhanced workflows, prioritizing their customers, giving us some AI-driven data insights, and essentially then looking to integrate into backend systems and really providing that end-to-end solution, as opposed to just looking to deflect customers, which we touched on earlier on. As a result, as similar before, we saw stronger CSAT scores, so customers are more satisfied. They're actually getting a solution rather than a deflection. We're increasing the agent efficiency and productivity, and all of that is led from a faster resolution time as well. So really nice example. They're a great product, personally speaking, as well. So I'm not here to boast their product, but I think that's really easily to see on their website, and they've really brought it to fruition as well. And then lastly, a completely different industry, I suppose, in terms of the fintech world with trust payments. They actually came from a very different perspective in that they had used Zendesk legacy tools such as flow builders, chatbots. Very much they were almost ahead of the AI curve, if you'd like to say that, before the AI really came to the forefront. They didn't have too much integrations, but we really tried to unpick their routing. They had a lot of manual processes set up, and now AI is sort of looking to not necessarily replace that, but sort of complement that, if you like, and sort of bringing that to fruition. So we focused on workflow automations, looking at the intent. How can we recognize what people are talking about in an email place, and then sort of enhancing sort of chatbot and messaging capabilities as well. And as we said so many times before, there was a reduced reliance on manual workarounds, so we could actually give the power to admins, to staff, which then as a result increases faster resolution times and improves customer experience and customer satisfaction. So they're just maybe 3 examples, and I appreciate we sort of whizzed through them, but as I say, just a bit conscious of time. Happy to share these slides afterwards, happy to go into a bit more detail regarding these particular use cases. But hopefully that gives you just a bit of an insight as to how we can support customers with Zendesk, regardless of the stage or journey that you're at as well. So lastly, as we say, we'd like to then maybe touch on some practical insights for implementation. And just quickly, just to pass back to you, Lucinda, hopefully a very simple question really. If customers are looking to implement Zendesk AI, what is the number one thing, or not, or one, maybe 1 to 3 things that you think people should be thinking about before they even start on this journey, if you like?
So rather than, I guess the number one thing that I would like for people to do is to trust the experts. So for most people who are going through this is their first foray into something as advanced as this. And, you know, with the likes of Redk, with the likes of Zendesk, we've got so much subject matter expertise on what does work. And exactly like what you said earlier, you know, how to swarm teams internally, you know, who's going to be the blocker there, etc. And sometimes we feel, especially because there's this AI is almost democratized, and so many people know what AI is, they feel they maybe know how to run a strategy. There is a huge amount of expertise available within your partners, within your vendors, about how to drive a successful approach. So I would say come to us with an open conversation, and we can give you, you know, sort of our view on how these things work. You let us know what, you know, sort of what your environment is, and we come to something collaborative. That's my sort of key recommendation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I think that leads nicely then into how we can support our customers. And we gave you some really nice examples previously. But I think first and foremost, what we want to understand is your business. What are your companies trying to achieve? Where are you coming from? What's your history? And then what are the overall goals that we're looking to address, or what does success look like as well? And I think in particular, something I love about working with our customers is that we're not trying to ram technology first. What we're trying to understand are 3 key areas, or 3 key pillars really: people, process, and technology. We need to understand who's going to be involved in terms of teams, roles, who's responsible, but also maybe even today's world, who responds to tickets, who creates the reports, you know, what actually, you know, what roles are involved, and actually how they're making a difference, or what are they trying to achieve. Alongside that comes processes. So actually, what are the steps that we're taking? Do we communicate with third parties? If we're looking at complaints, are we looking to escalate these things? And so therefore we need to understand processes, where we're coming from. And then finally, technology. What technology are we using today? And then how can we leverage products such as Zendesk AI to really either automate things or remove the friction, as we mentioned before, but really try and balance how technology can leverage utilizing with people and processes. As you can see on the screen, what we do with each of our clients as well is understanding those 3 key areas is, of course, understanding the wider picture of their business. And we break those down into 3 core pillars, really: their marketing automation, their sales performance, and then their customer service excellence. And customer service excellence, of course, is the hot topic of today. But if we really understand those 3 key areas, if we understand actually the data strategy that companies might have, or even the challenges, we can cross the barriers in terms of siloed data. If we need to integrate data, what is that, I suppose, architecture, and what do that data and integrations look like? We can also then look at omni-channel, so how are we communicating with our customers through voice, chat, messaging, WhatsApp, and so on. The level at the bottom of collaboration allows us to understand the point I just mentioned in terms of people and processes. And then lastly, everything we've been talking about: how does intelligent automation really provide us the power to be able to improve the areas that we're looking to achieve? So as an organization at Redk, we're looking to better understand your company, and hopefully through these pillars we can understand where we're at, which allows us to then dive into the change and the impact that we can have for your company. Once we've really understood those things, it allows us to then understand how we can deliver alongside you as a team. And as Lucinda mentioned, we are the experts within AI and customer service and so on. But really, once you've understood what we're looking to achieve, we then want to turn that into a delivery model. So particularly using agile methodology, we want to understand what we're planning for. We then need to design that. We need to develop, we need to test and deploy. And that process is ever evolving, particularly with AI. We know that it's changing all the time. We know new products are being released. Things are changing. The data models are being updated. We're always learning, not just ourselves as humans, but also the data and AI, as I mentioned. And therefore, that allows us to really ensure that we're developing and testing and validating throughout the process and throughout the steps as well. And then lastly, how have we helped customers already in terms of, well, it's all very well us talking about our methodology, but we can see on here some logos. But I think what's nice to highlight on this particular slide is that there's not always one particular vertical that we can help in. We've got use cases across the spectrum, ranging from retail all the way through to manufacturing, gaming, hospitality, and so on. So we've really come across many different challenges, many different teams, many different objectives. And again, if we really understand where you're starting from and what your goals are and ambitions, hopefully we can bring that to life and leverage the technology to improve and drive change. So, Lucinda, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to wrap up with, or anything to mention now.
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything. It's a very exciting space. I think we're all quite proud to be at the forefront of that. And it's, sort of partnerships like yourself, which help us not just scale, but also like better understand the broader view of our customers to ensure, the not just success, but the fastest route to success as well. So thank you so much for inviting me on here today.
Pleasure. No, and I must say a huge thank you for joining us. You've given certainly a lot for me to think about, and certainly a lot of things I'd love to pick your brain with afterwards. We have had some questions come through, but I am just conscious of time. I appreciate we've covered quite a lot of ground today as well. So what we will do, as I say, we'll follow up with those questions. If anybody would also like to reach out, our information will be provided afterwards, either to contact myself directly or Lucinda, of course. We would love to continue the conversation afterwards. But for now, thank you very much for joining, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon.